everyone, this is Michael Fang, co-founder and CEO of Hummingbot. So this is the second in our new weekly webinar series called Hummingbot School, where we spend a little time to show people how to get the most out of Hummingbot. So as an introduction, Hummingbot is an open source project that helps you build high-frequency trading bots that operate across different cryptocurrency exchanges. We have a few different strategies available, like market making, arbitrage, and others. And so our goal is to democratize algorithmic trading and make that available for everyone. We are a company, and the way we make money is by partnering with exchanges and different token projects to allow community members to provide market making for them. So, for example, we have a partnership with Harmony Protocol, where users can provide liquidity and run market making bots for Harmony. We just entered our first month of the bounty, and users did over 2 million volume through Harmony. And so we're going to continue that program and expand that to other partners as well. But the goal today is really to focus on helping you get the most out of Hummingbot, and in particular, the arbitrage strategy. Before we get started, I know a lot of you guys have questions about what our team is doing. So our main focus right now is on helping users make money. So we know Hummingbot is a pretty hard to use tool, but the reason you want to spend time with it is so you can build these bots that go out there and make money for you while you sleep. But that's obviously pretty difficult. So the way we're tackling that right now is connecting to different exchanges, adding more exchange connectors. We're working on Huobi and Bittrex right now. We're about to add a paper trading mode that allows you to kind of like diagnose and try out a strategy before you really get into it and risk your real money. And finally, we're adding some more controls to different strategies, in particular the pure market making strategy, to give people more levers to pull and more ways to configure how that bot behaves. So you should expect in the next few releases more and more of these things. But we realize that like creating a profitable trading bot is not easy, and we want to try to make that as straightforward as possible by giving people more controls and more exchanges that they can run. Oh, okay. Echo. Okay. So closer. Okay. Right. Sorry. As you can see, we're still trying to figure out the technical details, but hopefully week by week we're going to get better at making these recordings sound better and look better. So without further ado, let's go into the details of the arbitrage strategy. So the first thing I would say is that we have documentation on arbitrage, and I recommend that if you're going to be creating a trading bot, especially one that's going to be using your real capital, that you read through the documentation we have on the arbitrage strategy. So quickly, arbitrage is where you have assets that sit across two different exchanges, and and like usually the same trading pair. So let's say it's something like Bitcoin and the US dollar. The idea here is that as these prices in the market change, you might be able to buy on one exchange and sell on the other exchange and realize an immediate profit. Now, this doesn't come along very often, obviously, because if it did, everyone would be making lots of money. So almost by definition, arbitrage opportunities are rare. And Carlo, who's what? Is this still echo? Yeah. Okay. All right, let me try to reduce the echo a bit by putting this here. So the idea behind arbitrage is you're buying low and selling high, but it doesn't come around very often. So that's why we believe that in order to really do arbitrage, you don't want to sit there in front of a computer looking at screens waiting for that to occur. Ideally, you're running a bot. But I think there's a certain mindset. Obviously, you probably need to run an arbitrage bot for 1 day, maybe 2 days before you see a trade happen. Because the idea behind arbitrage is that you only trade when you know for a fact that you're going to realize a profit. And so, what we find is that in arbitrage, you may wait for 1 or 2 days before a trade even happens, but there's some situation when the market becomes volatile. Maybe prices on one exchange are going up or down, and another exchange doesn't move as fast, and that's when the arbitrage opportunities happen. So a lot about running an arbitrage is really the mindset. You're not trying to trade all the time, but it's more like you have assets which you're not using productively. Maybe it's some tokens in your wallet, and you can run a bot with them. And in case an arbitrage opportunity happens, you're well positioned to take advantage of it. So with that, let's go through Hummingbot and let's configure an arbitrage strategy. And I'll show you how to use Hummingbot to set that up. So this is the Docker version of Hummingbot. So we have scripts that help you install, update, and run Hummingbot. So I'm going to use our start install script to run that right now. So I have a few different versions of Hummingbot on this computer. There's a latest, which is the latest release. We also have a development branch. So by default, you'll be running the latest branch. So I'll just hit enter. So the first step in Hummingbot is always a config command to select the strategy. So we're going to start and configure a new arbitrage strategy. And so we're going to create a new configuration. And initially, we're going to use IDEX and Binance as our two exchange pairs. And the reason I picked IDEX and Binance is because there's a trading pair called 0x to ETH, which is bouncy, 0x to ETH. There we go. So this is the kind of the symbol format in IDEX. And then in Binance, it's 0xF. And so we have these like autocomplete windows, which have the full list of trading pairs for each exchange to help you more easily find the right trading pairs. So one thing to note is that it's important to have the base token line up across your two different markets and having the quote token line up. And so even though IDEX has the ETH first, in this case, ETH is actually the quote token, 0x is the base token. And similarly in Binance, the base token comes first in Binance. So here, even though it looks kind of different, it actually does match, where 0x is a base token and ETH is a quote token on both exchanges. So ability, I like to make at least 1% before a trade happens. Hummingbot does take into account fees and transaction costs like gas. So the minimum profitability number you put in, will be net of fees. And I'm going to unlock my Ethereum wallet, which I need in order to trade on IDEX. Okay, there we go. So let's start and let's see if we can make some arbitrage trades. Okay, all right. And I am monitoring the chat for comments. So if you have any questions about what I'm doing, feel free to pop them in there. Oh, there's one. Someone just asked, how does arbitrage work? Will it be sending from Binance to IDEX and likewise? And won't this take too long because of transaction time? That's a really good question. Yeah, so arbitrage does not send from Binance to IDEX. It assumes that you have inventory sitting on these two exchanges. And so you don't have to wait for transactions to confirm. And so the way arbitrage works is that, like, I already have a balance in IDEX as well as ZDEX. So you can see I've deposited some 0x into the IDEX smart contract along with some Ether. In Binance, I also have some 0x and Ether as well. And so that's what makes arbitrage possible. And in generally speaking, arbitrage opportunities don't last very long. And so you kind of have to have inventory sitting around, in case an opportunity comes up. So in this case, right now it looks like there is a slight arbitrage on one side of Binance. This is if you are taking the bid on IDEX and taking the ask on Binance. In plain English, this means that you are selling on IDEX and you are buying on Binance. So let's take a moment and maybe walk through how this calculation is generated using these prices. So here you can see that on IDEX, the bid price, which is the price that someone's willing to buy 0x, is 0.001012. On Binance, the ask price, which is the price where you can buy 0x, is 0.001011. So in this case, if you were using a very low probability number, this bot should go ahead and take this this trade. In this case, it's a very low probability. Remember that we set a 1% minimum profitability, so the bot isn't doing that trade right now. As a test, we can see, let's see that arbitrage opportunity still exists. It looks like it is. So one thing we can try is to reduce that longer. So let's configure a minimum profitability and make that super, super low just to see if we can get a trade to happen. As warning, it still may not because of fees and so forth, but let's give it a shot. So what I did was I just reconfigured the bot by typing the config command again, and I configured just that one parameter, which is the minimum profitability number, and changed it from 1% down to basically 0. So now it's reinitializing the bot. So another question, I think another question came up. The quote assets have to be the same, and the base assets. That's definitely true. Make sure they're lined up. In this case, the reason that it is lined up is because in IDEX, so we can show this. In IDEX always puts a quote token first, and then the base token, whereas most other exchanges put the base token first and then the quote token. So in IDEX, it's kind of like unique to IDEX, but in this case, we are lining things up. It's just that the symbol formatting in IDEX is a little bit different. In the future, we might kind of go ahead and kind of convert all of the symbol nomenclature across different exchanges to the same format to make it less confusing for users. But right now, I think we're really focused on profitability and ease of use and other things like that. So I think that change is something we're definitely going to do, but just not for another few months. So it looks like there is some kind of probability here, but the bot, I think because of fees and other things like that, it's not trading. So I think this probability number probably has to be just a bit higher for the bot to actually do the trade. We do take transaction costs into account, so it's not always clear that you're going to trade right when the probability is on that cusp. Later on, I'll show you a screenshot of what an arbitrage trade does look like, so you can see kind of like what it looks like when there is a real arbitrage. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you kind of what this looks like across some other exchanges. So I'm going to stop this bot, and keep in mind that in Hummingbot, all the configuration files are saved as separate files. So we can actually edit those files directly rather than kind of going through this configuration process for every exchange. So for example, I've created 3 files here. So here, this is basically the one that we had earlier, where we're arbitraging between IDEX and Binance, same trading pair. And then here's another one that is for Coinbase Pro in Binance. This one, because Coinbase doesn't have a 0x to Ether trading pair, I'm using their US dollar pair, and on Binance, it's the 0x to Tether pair. And finally, here's another one for Binance and Radar Relay. Same thing. So what I like to do is kind of like rename these files so it's easier for me to load the right one from the Hummingbot client. So let's go ahead and load some of the other files and see what the arbitrage looks like across different exchanges right now for this pair. So I'm going to reconfigure this bot, and I'm going to load the same arbitrage strategy, but a different configuration. So let's try the Coinbase Binance one. So again, Hummingbot reinitializes, it fetches the order book from both exchanges, and it kind of creates this cycle where every second it checks if there's an arbitrage opportunity or not. So on Coinbase, it looks like there's also a slight arbitrage opportunity. But for me, I don't have any 0x or US dollar on Coinbase. So you'll see this warning here if you can't actually trade. Well, again, we can kind of walk through the math a little bit and see why this arbitrage opportunity exists by looking at the prices. So again, in this case, you are buying on Binance and selling on Coinbase Pro. So if we look at the ask price over here on Binance, if you buy for 0.21950, and then you're selling 0x for 0.21997, you'll make a slight, a very small amount of profit. And so ideally, this is a very low amount, and so that's why typically we I always set a relatively high profitability just to make sure that when arbitrage happens, when I do a trade, I'm actually going to make some money. So so as you can see, there are these situations where you can have arbitrage, but they're just very rare. So we can look at another market. Let's look at the Radar Relay to Binance market. And as this market is initializing, I'll answer another question, which is how much 0x or ETH would you need, or does it use the maximum amount you have in balance? Great. So this is a really great question. Let's see. Okay, so right now there isn't much of an arbitrage on Radar Relay and Binance, but to explain further, the way that our arbitrage strategy works is that it looks basically through the entire order book on both sides and tries to figure out, for both order books, how much does it make sense to do in terms of size. So typically when there's arbitrage opportunity, what's really happening is you're issuing two market orders on either side, one to buy and the other to sell. So based on how the order book is laid out, you can kind of essentially figure out an arbitrage opportunity in terms of spread across each one. And so the way Hummingbot works is it checks if there's an arbitrage opportunity. If there is, then it checks if you have sufficient balance to actually execute that strategy. And it'll issue orders for the minimum of the arbitrage opportunity and the balance that you have. So on Radar, also, there's no arbitrage, but typically this is why we recommend running these bots in a cloud server or some type of like dedicated instance, so that you can run this, you can go away, make dinner, go to sleep, and then there's a chance in the morning you come back and a profitable trade has happened. In fact, when I was rehearsing for this earlier today, I saw such a trade happen running a very similar bot to this between Radar Relay and Binance. So let me show you the screenshot of what that looks like so that to just show you that arbitrage sometimes is possible. So this is kind of a screenshot for earlier today, and I think what happened here was someone kind of like accidentally put a fat finger order in on Radar Relay, because if you look at kind of like this price diagram over here, so typically the price to buy something in a market is always lower than the price that they're willing to sell something. But we had a situation earlier today on Radar Relay where someone was willing to buy 0x for 0.001051. And given the fact that like on the same market, they were selling 0x for a lower price, this bid price here was clearly, I would say, incorrect. And so I happened to be running this bot at the same time. And so what my bot did was it bought 0x for 0.001021 on Binance, and then it basically took this bid and sold for that price over here. And so you can see the profitability, buy on Binance, selling on Radar, there was a 3% spread. This 3% was larger than my 1% minimum profitability, and therefore it went ahead and executed this market order. And so, yeah, I made a very small amount of money, but this basically did it by itself. And so this is what arbitrage looks like when it does happen. But of course, this is rare. I was hoping that maybe it would happen while we were doing this webinar. Unfortunately, not. But it is possible, and we have users who have executed successful arbitrage trades once they've run the bot for a longer period of time. So that's about it. I think another question that people typically have is how do you find these strategies? So we have a dedicated strategy called Discovery that helps you discover arbitrage opportunities. And next week during this webinar, I'm going to go over that strategy. Maybe I'll answer a few more questions before I start. So before I leave, so last question is: can you arbitrage two dexes with the same wallet, i.e., DDEX Radar with the same MetaMask wallet? Absolutely. So this is actually what I'm doing right now. I'm only using the same. I always use the same. I only use one wallet with Hummingbot, and so it's the same. It's only one wallet, and it's basically it's creating count on different dexes. The one thing to note is that on IDEX is a decentralized exchange where you have to deposit assets into the smart contract before you trade. So even though I'm using the same wallet in IDEX, at DDEX and Radar, in IDEX I send some of my 0x to the IDEX smart contract in order to be able to trade on IDEX. So I think that was that's all the questions, and hopefully this was informative. As mentioned, next week we're going to go over the discovery strategy to help people find arbitrage opportunities. And if you have any more questions, please join our community on Discord. Ask us questions there, that's about it. Great. Well, thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you next week.